The morning sky looked different on New Haven. 3 suns painted the horizon in shades of gold and purple, nothing like the single yellow star that once warmed the planet Vextai. Zaraka held her youngest child closer as she walked toward the human settlement, her skin shifting from deep blue to worried green. Behind her, 12-year-old Kex carried their few belongings in a worn bag. 8-year-old Mira clutched a small crystal that glowed softly, the last piece of their destroyed home world. Little Jorik, barely 5 years old, kept looking back at the refugee camp they were leaving behind. "Mama, why can't we stay with the other families?" Jorik asked in their native language, his voice small and scared. Zaraka knelt down and touched his face gently. "Because the ships are taking everyone to different places, little star. We need to find our own way now." The truth was harder than that. The rescue ships had room for children, but not their parents. Families were being torn apart every day. Some parents made the impossible choice to send their children away alone, hoping they would be safe. But Zaraka couldn't do it. She couldn't let her babies go into the unknown without her. Her husband would have known what to do. He always had answers for everything. But he was gone now, lost when their world died. She was all her children had left, and she would do anything to keep them together. The human settlement grew larger as they walked. Strange buildings made of metal and glass reached toward the sky. Humans moved around like busy insects, carrying tools and talking in their quick, sharp language. Some stopped to stare at the alien family walking through their streets. Zaraka had been practicing human words for weeks. The sounds felt strange in her mouth, but she needed to make them understand. Her children's lives depended on it. At the main building, a guard pointed them toward an office. Inside, a human man sat behind a desk covered in papers and glowing screens. He looked tired, like he carried the weight of many problems. His hair was turning gray at the edges, and lines mapped worry across his face. "Another refugee family," he said to himself, then looked up at them. "I'm David Chen, Settlement Administrator. How can I help you?" Zaraka stepped forward, her skin flickering between blue and green as she struggled with her emotions. "Please, sir, I am Zaraka. These are my children. We need place to stay." David looked at the 3 young faces staring at him with hope and fear. He had seen too many families like this lately. His heart wanted to help them all, but resources were limited. The settlement was already stretched thin. "I understand your situation," he said gently. "But we have very strict rules about refugee placement. Each family needs a sponsor, someone who can provide housing and support. Without that, I can't approve your application." Zaraka felt her world crashing down again. She had prepared for this moment, but it still felt like a knife in her chest. "Sir, please, I am good worker. I know many things about growing food, fixing broken systems. My children, they are smart and well-behaved. They will not cause trouble." She paused, gathering courage for what she had to say next. Her skin turned a deep purple, the color of desperation among her people. "I can do other things too. Clean house, cook food, keep warm your bed at night. I ask only for place where my children can be safe." The office fell silent. David stared at her, understanding exactly what she was offering. He had been alone for 2 years now since his wife died in the mining accident. The loneliness ate at him every day, but this woman wasn't offering companionship. She was offering herself as payment for her children's safety. "That's not how we do things here," he said carefully. "We don't trade people like that." Tears started forming in Zaraka's large eyes. "Then what can I do? They are all I have left. My husband died saving others when our world burned. I cannot lose my children too." Keck stepped closer to his mother, his young face set with determination. "Sir, we really are good children. I can help with computers and machines. Mira makes beautiful art, and Jorik is very smart for his age. We just need a chance." David looked at the boy, seeing the same desperation in his eyes as in his mother's. These weren't just statistics or problems to solve. They were real people who had lost everything and were asking for the most basic thing: a place to belong. "Let me show you something," Zaraka said suddenly. She pulled out a small device from her bag. "This is Seed Grower from my world. It can make plants grow faster, stronger. Your food gardens, I can help make them better." She activated the device, and it hummed softly with a warm, golden light. "I know you have problems with growing enough food here. This technology, it can help many people." David leaned forward, interested despite himself. The settlement had been struggling with crop failures for months. Food shortage was becoming a real problem. "How does it work?" "It sings to the plants," Mira said softly in accented human words. "Like Mama used to sing to us." Zaraka smiled at her daughter, then looked back at David. "It helps plants understand what they need. Water, minerals, light, everything in perfect balance. One device can help whole field." For the first time since they arrived, David saw hope instead of just desperation. Maybe there was a way to help this family that would benefit everyone. "I can't make any promises," he said slowly. "But let me talk to some people. There might be possibilities we haven't considered." As they left the office, Zaraka felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. The human had listened to her. He hadn't said yes, but he hadn't said no either. Maybe, just maybe, there was a future for her children in this strange new world. Walking back through the settlement, she noticed things she had missed before. Children playing together, families sharing meals, people helping each other with daily tasks. It looked like a real community, the kind of place where her children could grow up safely. That night, in the temporary shelter they had been given, she held her children close and told them stories of their father and their lost home. But for the first time since their world died, she also let herself imagine a future where they might find a new home among the stars. 3 days later, David found himself standing outside the refugee shelter, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He had been thinking about Zaraka's offer non-stop, and it was driving him crazy. The settlement council meeting hadn't gone well. Half the members wanted to send all refugees to other colonies, claiming they didn't have resources to support them. The other half argued it was their duty to help, but offered no practical solutions. "We're not running a charity," Council Member Johnson had said, his voice sharp with frustration. "Every mouth we feed is food taken from our own families." But Dr. Lisa Martinez, the settlement's medical officer, had disagreed. "These people have knowledge we need. The Vextai were known for their advanced biosciences. We'd be fools to turn them away." Now David was here, watching Zaraka help other refugees repair a broken water purifier. Her hands moved confidently over the alien device, and within minutes, clean water was flowing again. The crowd of grateful families around her told him everything he needed to know about her character. "She's been doing that all morning," said Tom Bradley, one of the shelter supervisors. "Fixed 3 different machines so far. Never asks for anything in return." Kex was nearby, helping his mother translate between human and Vextai refugees. The boy picked up languages like a sponge soaked up water. Mira had drawn pictures for the younger children, and even little Jorik was sharing his small portion of food with a human girl who looked hungry. These weren't just good children. They were exceptional ones. "Zaraka!" David called out. She looked up, her skin shifting to a hopeful yellow-green when she saw him. "Can we talk?" They walked to a quiet corner of the shelter. Her children followed at a distance, close enough to provide support, but far enough to give privacy. Smart kids, David thought. They understood the importance of this conversation. I've been thinking about what you said, David began, about helping with our agricultural problems. Her eyes brightened. You want to try the seed grower? Maybe. But first I need to understand something. When you offered to warm my bed, did you mean that or were you just desperate? Zaraka's skin flushed a deep purple again. I was desperate. I still am. But I do not lie. Ever. If that is what it takes to keep my children safe, then yes, I would do it. That's not what I'm asking, David said gently. I'm asking if you want to, not if you would do it out of necessity. She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. You are kind man, David Chen. You have sad eyes, like someone who has lost important person. But you treat us with respect, when others see only problems. If circumstances were different, if I was not desperate refugee, yes, I think I might want to know you better. Her honesty hit him like a physical blow. My wife died 2 years ago, he admitted. Mining accident. I've been alone since then, just focused on work. I didn't expect to feel anything for anyone again. But you do feel something? She asked softly. I think I might. But not like this. Not when you feel you have to trade yourself for your children's safety. That's not fair to any of us. Zaraka smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it reached her eyes. You are good man. Your wife was lucky woman. Here's what I'm thinking, David said, making a decision that would change all their lives. We start with a work arrangement. You help us with our agricultural problems, and in return, you and your children get permanent resident status. No strings attached. What happens between us personally, if anything, happens because we both want it to, not because you feel you owe me something. You would do this? She asked, hardly daring to believe it. The settlement needs help, and you have skills we desperately need. It's a fair trade. That afternoon, David took Zaraka and her children to the colony's main growing facility. The sight that greeted them was depressing. Rows of struggling plants, yellowed leaves, and soil that looked more like gray dust than earth. The previous agricultural specialist left 6 months ago, David explained. We've been limping along since then, but we're losing crops faster than we can grow them. Zaraka walked between the rows, her device humming softly as she scanned the plants. Occasionally, she would kneel down and touch the soil, her expression growing more concerned. The ground is sick, she said finally. Not just hungry, sick. The plants cannot get what they need because the soil cannot hold it. Can you fix it? David asked. Yes, but it will take time, weeks, maybe months to heal properly. She looked up at him with determination. But I can start today. Over the next several hours, Zaraka worked with an intensity that amazed David. She used her device to analyze soil samples, then began mixing organic compounds she had brought from the refugee camp. Kex helped by translating measurements between Vexitae and human systems, while Mira drew detailed diagrams of the root systems they were examining. Even little Jorik contributed, his small hands perfect for planting the new seeds his mother had, prepared with special nutrients. By evening, they had treated a test section of the growing facility. The change wasn't dramatic yet, but David could see the difference in the plant's color and posture. They looked healthier somehow. This is just the beginning, Zaraka explained as they cleaned up. Tomorrow, plants will be stronger. In 1 week, you will see real difference. In 1 month, this section will produce twice as much food as before. As they walked back toward the main settlement, David noticed how his usually quiet community had come alive. People were stopping to talk with Zaraka and her children, asking questions about their work and their home world. The fear and suspicion he had expected wasn't there. David, Zaraka said as they reached the residential area, I want to thank you for giving us this chance. But I also want you to know, my offer before, it was not just desperation talking. You are a good man, and I can see pain in your eyes that matches mine. Maybe someday, when we both are ready, we can help heal each other's loneliness." David felt his heart skip a beat. "Maybe we can," he agreed. "But let's take it slow. Let's get to know each other as people first, not as someone who needs something, and someone who can provide it." That night, as David lay in his empty bed, he realized he was looking forward to tomorrow for the first time in 2 years. Not just because of the potential solution to their food crisis, but because of the possibility of something he had never expected to find again: companionship, understanding, and maybe even love. In the refugee shelter, Zaraka tucked her children into their small beds and told them about their new job. For the first time since leaving their home world, she let herself believe they might actually be safe. And maybe, just maybe, she might find happiness again too. 2 months had passed since Zaraka started working in the agricultural facility, and the results were nothing short of miraculous. The test section she had treated was now producing 3 times more food than before, and the techniques she taught were spreading throughout the entire facility. But more than that, she had become part of the community. Every morning, she would walk through the settlement with her children, greeting neighbors and stopping to help anyone who needed it. Her gentle nature and obvious expertise had won over even the most skeptical residents. David found himself looking forward to their daily work sessions more than he wanted to admit. Zaraka had an easy way about her, never making him feel stupid when she had to explain concepts that were second nature to her people, and her children had become like fixtures around the administration building. Kex had appointed himself as David's unofficial technical assistant, helping to translate between different computer systems and solving problems with the quick thinking he had inherited from both parents. Mira had brightened up the sterile office building with her artwork, creating beautiful murals that seemed to glow with inner light, and little Jorik had charmed everyone with his curiosity and endless questions about human customs. "Why do humans shake hands when they meet?" he had asked one day, demonstrating the gesture he had learned. "It's to show we're not carrying weapons," David had explained, which led to a long discussion about human history and customs that left both of them laughing. These quiet moments were becoming the highlight of David's days. He realized he was falling for more than just Zaraka. He was falling for her entire family. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. The only shadow on their growing happiness was the increasing tension from outside the settlement. Reports were coming in about corporate scouts asking questions, measuring land, and making offers to human colonists. Something big was coming, and David had a bad feeling about what it might mean for the refugees. His suspicions were confirmed when Inspector Williams arrived unannounced one Tuesday morning. The man was everything David disliked about government bureaucrats: cold, calculating, and completely focused on rules rather than people. "Mr. Chen," Williams said, settling into David's office like he owned it. "I'm here to review your refugee integration program. There have been some concerns raised about your methods." "What kind of concerns?" David asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Reports suggest you've been making special arrangements with alien refugees that go beyond standard protocols. Specifically, there are questions about your relationship with a Vextai female and her children." David felt his blood pressure rising. "Zaraka and her family are valuable members of our community. She's solved our food production crisis single-handedly." "That's not the point," Williams replied coldly. "The law is clear about refugee placement procedures. You can't just decide to keep whoever you want based on personal preferences." Personal preferences? David stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Inspector, that woman has increased our crop yields by 300%. Her children have integrated perfectly with our community. They're not charity cases, they're contributors. Nevertheless, proper procedures must be followed. I'll need to interview all parties involved and review all documentation. If I find any irregularities, the entire family will need to be relocated immediately." That evening, David warned Zaraka about the inspection. They were in the agricultural facility, reviewing the day's growth measurements, when he broke the news. Her skin immediately shifted to the worried green color he had learned to recognize. "Will they separate us from our home here?" she asked. "I don't know," David admitted. "Williams is a by-the-book type. If he decides our arrangement doesn't fit his regulations, he could force you to move." Kex looked up from the computer screen, where he had been recording data. "Where would we go?" "There are other colonies that take refugees," David said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "But I'm going to fight this. You belong here now. This is your home." "No," Zaraka said firmly. "This is your home. You have been kind to us, more than kind. But we are still outsiders here. If the inspector says we must go, then we go. I will not cause trouble for people who have helped us." "You're not causing trouble," David insisted. "You're part of this community now. People here care about you and your children." "Some people," she corrected gently. "Others still see us as burden, as problem to be solved. I know this because I see how they look at us sometimes." She was right, and David knew it. While most of the settlement had welcomed the Vextai family, there were still those who viewed any alien presence with suspicion. Williams was probably getting his information from them. The next morning brought worse news. A convoy of vehicles arrived at the settlement, sleek, expensive transports that belonged to Stellar Mining Corporation. David's heart sank as he watched. Uniformed security personnel unload equipment and begin setting up a temporary command center. The leader of the group was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes like chips of ice. She introduced herself as Director Patricia Hayes and requested an immediate meeting with the Settlement Council. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, spreading maps and legal documents across the council table, "Stellar Mining Corporation has acquired legal mineral rights to this entire sector. We're prepared to offer generous buyout packages to all human residents who wish to relocate." "And what about our alien residents?" Dr. Martinez asked pointedly. Director Hayes' smile never wavered, but her eyes grew colder. "Alien refugees have no legal standing in this matter. They'll need to be relocated through proper channels before any mining operations begin. You can't just kick people out of their homes," Councilmember Thompson protested. "Mr. Thompson, these refugees don't have homes here. They have temporary shelter, which was always meant to be temporary. We're simply moving up the timeline." David felt sick as he listened to the woman casually discuss displacing hundreds of people like they were inventory to be moved around. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Mining operations begin in 6 weeks. All non-essential personnel must be relocated by then." After the meeting, David found Zara Ka in the agricultural facility, teaching a group of human children about plant biology. She looked so natural there, so much like she belonged, that his heart ached thinking about losing her. "We heard about the mining company," she said when she saw him. "Mrs. Patterson told us they want everyone to leave." "Not everyone," David said carefully. "They're offering buyouts to human residents. People can take the money and relocate to other colonies if they want to." "And refugees like us?" David couldn't meet her eyes. "They want all aliens gone before mining starts." Zaraka nodded slowly like she had been expecting this news. "Then we will prepare to leave. I will start teaching others how to use the growing techniques so they can continue the work after we are gone." "No," David said firmly. "I'm not letting this happen. There has to be a way to fight this." "David," she said gently, placing her hand on his arm. "You have done more for us than anyone had right to expect. But you cannot fight big company with legal papers and security forces. Sometimes the small people must step aside and let the powerful do what they want. I won't accept that," he said stubbornly. "There has to be something we can do." That night, David sat in his office long after everyone else had gone home, searching through legal databases and environmental regulations. There had to be some law, some protection, something that could help them fight back. He was still there. When dawn broke over the settlement, painting the sky in those familiar shades of gold and purple, as he watched the sun rise, he made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't going to let stellar mining destroy his community without a fight, and he wasn't going to lose the woman and children who had become his family without trying. Everything possible to protect them. The real battle was just beginning. The harassment started small. Security guards from Stellar Mining would follow Zaraka and her children around the settlement, claiming they were conducting routine patrols. They would shine bright lights into the refugee shelters at night, supposedly checking for safety violations. They questioned anyone who was seen talking to alien residents about their immigration status. David tried to file complaints, but Director Hayes simply smiled and produced official documents authorizing all their activities. Inspector Williams, who had been quiet since the mining company arrived, suddenly became very interested in finding violations of refugee placement procedures. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen," Williams said during one of their increasingly hostile meetings, "but my investigation has revealed several irregularities in how you've handled refugee placement. The Vextai family in particular seems to have received preferential treatment that goes against established protocols." "What kind of preferential treatment?" David demanded. "Private housing arrangements, unrestricted access to settlement facilities, informal work agreements that bypass proper documentation. It's quite irregular." David wanted to point out that everything they had done was motivated by simple human decency, but he knew Williams wouldn't care. The inspector had clearly chosen his side, and it wasn't with the refugees. Things got worse when the children became targets. Kex came home one day with a bruised face after some human kids, influenced by their parents' newfound anti-alien sentiment, cornered him near the school. "They said we don't belong here," he told his mother, trying not to cry. "They said we're taking food from human families." Mira stopped drawing her beautiful pictures and started staying close to home. Little Jorik, who had been making friends with everyone, suddenly became quiet and clingy. The joy that had been growing in their family was being systematically crushed by fear and hostility. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. Jorik had been playing in the settlement's small park when 3 of Stellar Mining's security guards approached him. The little boy had been showing another child how to make patterns with his glowing crystal when the guards decided it might be some kind of alien technology that needed to be confiscated. "Hand over the device, kid," one of them ordered, his hand resting on his weapon. "It's not device," Jorik said in his careful human words. "It's memory stone from home. Mama says it helps remember Papa." I said, "Hand it over." Jorik clutched the crystal tighter. It was all he had left of his father and their destroyed world. "Please, sir, it's just pretty rock. It doesn't hurt anyone." When the child refused to give up his treasure, one of the guards grabbed his wrist and tried to force his fingers open. Jorik cried out in pain and fear, which brought several adult humans running to see what was happening. Tom Bradley, the shelter supervisor, arrived first. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? He's just a little kid." "Stand back, sir. We're confiscating potentially dangerous alien technology." "That's not technology, you idiot. It's a piece of crystal. My own daughter has one just like it." But the guard wasn't listening. He squeezed Jorik's wrist harder, making the child scream. That's when Kex arrived. The 12-year-old boy had inherited his father's protective instincts and his mother's fierce love for family. Seeing his little brother in pain triggered something primal in him. He launched himself at the much larger guard, shouting in Vextai as he tried to free Jorik. The guard, startled by the sudden attack, pushed Kex away hard. The boy flew backward and hit his head against a metal bench, blood immediately streaming down his face. The crowd of humans who had gathered to watch were shocked into action. Dr. Martinez, who happened to be walking by, rushed to help the injured boy while others formed a protective circle around both children. "This is outrageous," she shouted at the guards. "These are children. What kind of monsters are you?" By the time David and Zaraka arrived, Kex was conscious but dizzy, and Jorik was sobbing in Tom Bradley's arms, still clutching his crystal. Zaraka's skin had turned deep black, a color David had never seen before, which he later learned indicated pure rage among her people. "You hurt my children," she said to the guards, her voice deadly quiet. "They are babies. They have done nothing to you." The guard who had grabbed Jorik looked uncomfortable now that he faced an angry mother and a crowd of disapproving humans. "We were just doing our job, ma'am, checking for dangerous items." "Dangerous?" Zaraka held up Jorik's crystal, which was now glowing brighter in response to his distress. "This is Memory Stone. It holds pictures and sounds from our world. The only danger it poses is to make people remember love and family and home." Director Hayes arrived with more security personnel, clearly intending to intimidate the growing crowd. But her plan backfired. The sight of corporate thugs facing off against children and their supporters only made more humans angry. "What's the meaning of this disturbance?" Hayes demanded. "Your people just assaulted 2 children," David said, his voice shaking with fury. "A 5-year-old and a 12-year-old. My security team was investigating suspicious activity. If the alien subjects had cooperated—" "Subjects?" Dr. Martinez interrupted, still holding a bandage to Kex's head. "They're not subjects. They're children. And this is not some military zone where you can treat people like prisoners." The crowd murmured agreement, and David realized that Stellar Mining had made a crucial mistake. By targeting children, they had turned public opinion against them, in a way that no amount of legal paperwork could fix. That evening, the Settlement Council held an emergency meeting. The room was packed with residents who had never shown interest in politics before, but were now demanding action. "This has gone too far," declared Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who had initially been skeptical of the refugees. "I don't care what kind of legal rights that mining company claims to have. Nobody hurts children in my community." Even Councilmember Johnson, who had been resistant to refugee support, was visibly shaken. "I may have concerns about resource allocation, but I won't stand by while children are terrorized by corporate security forces." The tide was turning, but David knew it might be too little, too late. Stellar Mining's legal position was strong, and they clearly weren't above using intimidation to get what they wanted. As the meeting broke up, Zaraka approached David with a heavy heart. "They offered me something today," she said quietly. "Who offered you what?" "Director Hayes. She said if I testify that you forced me to stay here against my will, they will give me and my children safe passage to Colony on Kepler 438b. Good schools, good medical care, guaranteed residency." David felt like she had punched him in the stomach. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I would think about it." She looked at him with tears in her large eyes. "David, my children were hurt today because of me, because I wanted to stay here with you instead of taking them somewhere safe. What kind of mother does that make me?" "It makes you a mother who wants her children to have a real home, not just safety," David said desperately. "Zaraka, we can fight this. We can find a way." "How?" "They have laws and lawyers and security forces. What do we have?" David looked around the room, where dozens of humans were still talking in angry, determined voices about protecting their alien neighbors. "We have something they don't," he said slowly. "We have a community that cares about doing what's right." But even as he said it, David wondered if that would be enough. Stellar Mining held all the legal cards, and they had shown they were willing to use force to get what they wanted. The clock was ticking, and he was running out of ideas to save the woman and children who had become his family. The next morning would bring new challenges, and David suspected they would need a miracle to overcome them. David spent the night researching everything he could find about Stellar Mining Corporation and their environmental practices. What he discovered made his blood run cold, but also gave him the first glimmer of hope he'd felt in days. The company had a history of environmental violations on 12 different worlds. They used extraction methods that poisoned water supplies and destroyed ecosystems. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to deliberately target planets with refugee populations, knowing that displaced people had no legal standing to fight back. But David also found something else: a recent ruling by the Galactic Environmental Council that held mining companies responsible for any ecological damage that affected protected species or critical ecosystems. If he could prove that Stellar mining's operations would cause environmental harm, he might have grounds to stop them. The problem was proof. He needed scientific evidence, and he needed it fast. That's when he thought of Zara Ka's expertise in bioagriculture and ecosystem management. The Vextai had been known throughout the galaxy for their environmental sciences before their world was destroyed. If anyone could analyze the potential impact of the mining operations, it would be her. He found her in the agricultural facility, early the next morning, teaching Kex how to calibrate soil nutrient sensors. Both of them looked exhausted, like they hadn't slept much either. "Zara Ka, I need your help with something," David said. "It might be dangerous, and I can't promise it will work. But it could be our only chance to stop stellar mining." She looked up at him with tired eyes. "What do you need?" David explained. His discovery about the environmental regulations and his theory about the mining company's extraction methods. "I need someone with expertise in ecosystem analysis to study their equipment and mining plans. Someone who can determine exactly what kind of damage they'll cause to the planet's environment." "You want me to spy on them?" she asked. "I want you to use your scientific knowledge to expose what they're really planning to do to this world." Zara Ka was quiet for a long moment, her skin shifting through several colors as she considered the implications. "If they catch me investigating their operations, they will have excuse to arrest me immediately. My children would be left alone." "I know I'm asking a lot," David said, "but if we don't try something, you'll all be relocated anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." Kex looked up from his work. "Mama, I want to help too." "Absolutely not," both adults said simultaneously. "But I'm good with computers and technical systems," the boy protested. "I can help analyze their data." "It's too dangerous," Zara Ka said firmly. "If something happens to me, you need to take care of Mira and Jorik." That afternoon, while Stellar Mining's personnel were busy setting up equipment on the far side of the settlement, Zara Ka used her scientific instruments to analyze soil and water samples from the proposed mining sites. What she found was worse than David had feared. "The extraction process they plan to use will release heavy metals into the water table," she explained, showing him the data on her scanner. "Within 6 months, the contamination will reach the settlement's water supply. Within 2 years, it will poison the entire regional ecosystem." "Will that kill people?" David asked. "Not immediately, but long-term exposure will cause serious health problems. Cancer, neurological damage, birth defects, and the environmental damage will be permanent. Nothing will grow in contaminated areas for decades." David felt excitement and horror battling in his chest. This was the evidence they needed, but it also meant that Stellar Mining was planning to destroy not just their community, but the entire planet's ecosystem. "Can you document all of this? Create a report that would stand up to scrutiny by environmental scientists?" "Yes, but I need more data. I need to analyze their actual mining equipment, not just the soil samples." That night, while the settlement slept, Zara Ka made her way to the Stellar Mining compound. David had wanted to go with her, but she insisted it would be safer if she went alone. Her natural camouflage abilities and knowledge of technology would help her stay undetected. She was gone for 3 hours that felt like 3 years to David. He paced his office, imagining every possible disaster, until she finally returned with a small data storage device. "I got everything," she said, her skin pale with exhaustion and stress. "Equipment specifications, chemical analysis of their extraction compounds, projected output calculations. It's all here." Over the next 2 days, working around the clock, Zaraka compiled a comprehensive environmental impact report that would have impressed scientists at any major university. The data was damning. Stellar mining's operations would cause ecological devastation on a scale that violated numerous galactic environmental protection laws. The question was how to use this information effectively. Dr. Martinez proved to be the key. As the settlement's chief medical officer, she had contacts with the Galactic Health Organization and the Environmental Council. When she saw Zaraka's report, her reaction was immediate and strong. "This is criminal," she said, studying the data. "They're planning to poison an entire planet for short-term profit. I have colleagues who need to see this immediately." Within 24 hours, the report was in the hands of Environmental Council investigators on 3 different worlds. The response was swift and decisive. Director Hayes was in the middle of pressuring more human families to accept buyout offers when the official Environmental Council ship landed at New Haven. The